The last thing we will talk about now, just quickly, are some topics in equity. Two of them, de-skilling and social solidarity. The first is the idea of de-skilling. De-skilling is the idea within the ethics of artificial intelligence that the people will be, in essence, kicked out of their jobs by AI. So if someone wants to become, in this Quora post, I want to become a radiologist. However, will AI take over this career in the next half century and put me out of a job? Well, the answer is no, not entirely, but it might. It certainly it's true that artificial intelligence does risk certain kinds of occupations, and certainly it's true that some members of our society will be hurt more than others. So, well, let me put it this way: some members of our society will be very benefited by artificial intelligence, and some members will be harmed. Some people will lose their jobs, their entire occupation, because it will be taken over by artificial intelligence. Something like that is a form of de-skilling, as someone's skills are now worthless. Another form of de-skilling is to say that people no longer use their skills, so they forget about their skill. Um, those are two different ideas, but both intersect very well with the idea of equity. Um, so let me just explain quickly the second idea of de-skilling, and then we will wrap this up. The second idea of de-skilling is not just that you lose your job to an AI, it's that maybe you keep your job as a radiologist, but you lose your skills as a radiologist because you just depend upon the machine to always make your decisions for you. And this concern traces back to one of Plato's dialogues called the Phaedrus. And the story from that dialogue is that the inventor discovers writing, the ability to write. And this inventor goes to one of the gods and says, Look, I've invented this great thing. It's called writing. Now our memories will be perfected because we can write down everything we need to remember. And the god responds that, actually, that's not true. This tool you think that will help your memory will actually destroy it because now you don't have to use your brain to remember anything. You can just write it down. And as time goes on, you will forget how to keep things in your brain. So that's in the Plato story of the Phaedrus. And the outcome of that is this idea that things that appear to help our skills can actually take away those skills. So those are the two senses in which AI can be de-skilling. It can directly take our jobs, so our skills are worthless, or it can do our jobs for us, so we lose or forget how to do the kinds of things that we are supposed to do as a radiologist or something else. So a kind of a fairness response to that might be, well, this could happen to anybody, so you should adopt and get a different job. A solidarity response is going to be much more nuanced and is going to say, look, because what society is about is the collective, not the individuals, then when we have a technological revolution like this, we must be mindful of the fact that the collective is harmed because individuals are losing their jobs or becoming de-skilled in the sense they no longer have the skills. They give their skills over to the AI. And so this is a case where, again, the greatest advantage must be given to the least advantaged. And society must do something to benefit those who have lost their jobs or their skills because of AI. Right? So this is an important decision that we will face going forward. What debt, if or excuse me, what benefit, if any, does society owe to those whose careers are being decimated by artificial intelligence? If you want to justify the idea that society should take significant action to benefit those who have been harmed by artificial intelligence, who've had their, let's say, their career taken away from them, and if you want to take that side, then equity is a strong argument to mount. It's the idea again that no one should be left behind. And if artificial intelligence is costing some people their career, then societal resources and advantages and benefits must be focused on those people in order to ensure they are not left behind, perhaps with training programs or something similar. Whereas by contrast, the fairness response will be a little less involved. The fairness response is, well, everyone has an equal opportunity in the world. This is what AI is doing. Make the best of it, however you can. The fairness is more individualistic. Equity is more collectivist. Now, the second idea that I want to talk about is this idea of the inclusion society. Another aspect of equity, of the idea of no one left behind, or another, excuse me, another aspect of the idea of inclusion. It is not just no one left behind, but it is also no one left outside. So we can imagine a society, a filter bubble society, in which people are not left behind exactly. People may have equal income and opportunities and things, but people are still outside. That is, we are split into tribes that are disparate, at war with each other, or not communicating with each other. Uh, the the fairness response to that would be, well, and that's kind of the way it goes, or a rights-based and autonomy response would be, that's kind of the way it goes. That's the way people want to do things. But in equity response, because it's inclusive, would seek inclusiveness not only sort of vertically in terms of opportunities, wealth, and poverty, but also horizontally, just simply in terms of differences. So in equity or inclusiveness approach would try to find ways to minimize this kind of filter bubble tribalism. And here's an example of that. Um, this is from an organization in the United States that takes this approach to equity, and they're thinking about how AI can be designed, and they're saying it goes through steps. Like first, the engineer says, let's optimize for individual well-being, which makes perfect sense. What behaviors measurably increase well-being? Having digital conversations with people you know well. What do some people talk about with friends and family? Personalized charged content. So what they're demonstrating here is how filter bubbles develop in society. An algorithm on Instagram or Facebook or X or anywhere else in social media or in other places. An algorithm which attempts to help to optimize for individual well-being and freedom, which lets individuals find others to be with and communicate with who share their interests. An algorithm that does these positive things ends up at the end causing more tribalism and polarization. So the point that is being made here is that equity and solidarity can stand against ideas of autonomy, personal freedom, and personal well-being. There's a kind of tension here between the individual and the collective. Um, of course, both are good things. We all want individuals to be free and to be able to do what they want to do. And we all want a kind of societal harmony. What's being pointed out here is that AI tends to split these two things apart. And if we're going to privilege the individual autonomy, that may lead to filter bubbles, tribalism, people gathering into groups of similar interests, and a society which is splintered and pulled apart. Whereas by contrast, if we want to privilege equity and solidarity, then we might want to adjust our algorithms so that there's unfortunately less human autonomy in those algorithms. Um, People are in some sense forced, either by engineering or some other mechanism, people are forced to encounter and share opinions with people who are different from, who have views that are different from theirs. And so, in this way, perhaps these encounters are less enjoyable for individuals, but they're better for society as a whole in the sense that we don't have this splintered or tribalized reality. So this kind of debate, which we see happening quite a bit now, about tribalism and filter bubbles, can be understood in the ethical level as a debate between equity and solidarity on one side and autonomy or personal freedom on the other. Finally, we are on the last slide, the hyper-equity society. If we are going to think about a society back on the vertical way of the greatest advantage to the least advantaged, if we are going to think about that kind of society, where we are going to allocate the greatest benefit to those who are at risk of being left behind, this poses a real privacy risk because the only way we can know who is least advantaged and who is at threat of being left behind is if we know a lot about everybody. So just like we saw a dilemma, a true dilemma between between fairness and privacy, so too we see that same dilemma between equity and privacy. If we wanted to divide up our resources in favor of the least advantaged, We need to know who the least advantaged are. And if we need to know that, we need to know a lot about their personal lives, what they have, how they live. So there's a question here too about surveillance and society. Taking the side of equity does imply does require some kind of social surveillance. It does because, again, we recall that equity is about putting the society first. We want to make a good society, and that determines how we will treat individuals. So surveillance is something that harms individuals, but it helps society if we understand help to mean diminishing inequality. And again, giving the greatest advantage to the least advantaged. So, again, just like we have the conflict between privacy and fairness, we have a conflict between privacy and equity. And these are different forms of a broader conflict we have generally in ethics between collectivity and the individual. The question is, where do we start? Do we start by ensuring that individuals are given full ethical respect? We respect their autonomy, their freedom, their dignity, their privacy. If so, we might end up with societies that are unequal, as we saw with the Will Chamberlain experiment. By contrast, we can start with society and say we want societies to be equal, composed of people with no one left behind. And that's fine. But if so, that may result in treatment of individuals which takes away their privacy and their freedom. Again, there are no right or wrong answers, but there are dilemmas between these two things, between privacy and fairness, between privacy and autonomy and equity, between the individual and the society.